warm welcome to all the viewers. Today's session of Tourism and Hospitality Research, we will be discussing about an important concept in research, which is sampling techniques. So what is sampling techniques? Here in this picture you can see I have bifurcated the sampling techniques into two, the first being probability and the second being non-probability. You must have heard these terms, but today I am going to explain you these terms quite simply with examples so that you never forget them again. So let us start. Using a subset of the population for representing the entire population is known as sampling in survey research. We need to understand over here that most of the research which we conduct in tourism and hospitality domain is done through a survey wherein we seek responses and we gather data to analyze it further. So how to gather data from the population? By the word population, I mean the respondents who are of interest to me as per my studies research question, as per my studies objective, who are the people I am going to survey. So that large group of people is known as population. But I cannot survey each and every member in the population. It's not feasible. In case I am doing a census, CENSUS, then I would definitely survey each and every member of the population. But in case of a survey, I will take few representatives of the population to infer the results of my study on the entire population. So that is why sampling procedures, sampling methods are quite important to understand while you are framing your research design. The role of sampling techniques in research. How does it help you? The first is validity. It ensures the accuracy and truthfulness of the research findings. A reliable sampling method guarantees consistency and stability of research results. Representative sample reflects the characteristics of the larger population. It is crucial for the success of your research as it contributes to the overall achievement of the research goals. Herein I have drawn in a very simple diagram for you to understand the concept of sampling. So the entire population of interest on whom I plan to do my study, I want to infer the results for that population, that group of people is a large mass of people which is known as population. Then the sampling frame is the accessible population, the population which I can access, and the sample are the representatives from that accessible population on whom I am going to do the study, from whom I am going to get my survey questionnaires filled up. So sampling method is something which helps us to collect the sampling respondents, the way, the technique to collect the relevant respondents from the population, that is meant by sampling method. And whatever results we'll be getting out of data analysis, we are going to infer them on the entire population. This is the role of research. So now you have understood the role of research, the importance of research. Why choosing the appropriate sampling technique is crucial for us? It is quite crucial because if we are doing a study based on probability sampling techniques. It ensures randomness and known selection chance. So probability sampling technique means that each and every member of the population has an equal chance of being selected as a part of my respondents. When I talk about non-probability sampling techniques, it uses deliberate selection based on convenience. And both of these sampling techniques are further bifurcated into 4 methods each, which we are going to discuss right now. First, let us talk about the probability sampling techniques. The first one being the simple random sampling. Here, every component of the population gets an equal probability of being chosen for the sample when using this kind of sampling technique. It is comparable to selecting a name at random. So just like a lottery, we can pick up any of the tickets out of that lottery box, and this helps us in getting random sampling. Anonymizing the population, for example, by giving each item or individual in the population an identification number by random identification identifier, and then selecting those numbers at random allows for simple random sampling. Second one is stratified sampling. For instance, at a university with 80% female students and 20% male students, you wish to measure the height of these students. So how you are going to collect the samples? In this case, you will be dividing the student population into stratas. STRATAS. What is a strata? Strata is a group of people who possess homogeneous characteristics. So homogeneous means I will divide the population of students into one group which is the male students and one group which is all the female students of that university. And out of these two stratas based on gender, which I have classified on gender, I'll take 80% female students and 20% male students. That means if there are 100 students in female group and 100 in the male strata, I'll take 80 female students from the female strata and 20 male students from the male strata. So that is stratified sampling. I hope it's quite clear to you now. Next is systematic sampling. You must choose a random start between 1 and 10, say 3. You must also choose your sampling intervals such as 1 in 10 if your sample will be 10% of the entire list. So if I say that the entire sampling frame from which I can access the respondents, I can get the respondents is, for an instance, 3000, and I plan to collect 300 samples from that sampling frame, this implies that I would choose every 10th person on the list after starting with the third. If I go by this norm that I select the third person and then every 10th person I select to get 10% of the entire list, that is 300 of the entire 3000 accessible sampling frame. So this is known as systematic sampling. The last one in probability sampling technique is the cluster sampling. Cluster sampling selects the sample at random from groups of the intended population rather than from individual units. These could be pre-existing groups such as students from a particular school, year, or residents of a particular zip code. So, as we discussed in stratified sampling, the stratas possess homogeneous characteristics, but in case of cluster sampling, each cluster has heterogeneous elements of the population. Means there could be different elements, people possessing different characteristics in each cluster. So when I select, I would be selecting the clusters, not the individuals for my survey. So I would be selecting, for example, cluster A, cluster B. So all the elements in cluster A will be participating in my study. All the elements in cluster C will be participating in my study. So if I select cluster A and cluster C, I leave out cluster B, I will be selecting all the elements of cluster A and cluster C. I hope it's quite clear now. Let us now understand non-probability sampling techniques. The first being convenience sampling. As the name suggests, the selection of the individuals or components in a sample is based on their availability and accessibility. For instance, if you are conducting a research survey at a university, a convenience sample could be made up of co-workers or students who are eager to complete your questionnaire and are present on the campus with their free time. So it is convenient for you to collect your survey responses from them who are present in the university and they are quite eager to complete it for you. The second being quota sampling. Similar to the stratified sampling method which we discussed earlier in probability sampling techniques, this sampling method also specifies which groups or criteria should be used to recruit survey respondents in order to establish a spread over the target population. It depends on the researcher's knowledge, researcher's experience, that which group of people or which criteria should be used to recruit the respondents. The third is purposive sampling. Researchers intentionally select sample participants based on their understanding and expertise of the study's subjects or their objectives. This method, often referred to as judgment sampling, is a rapid and rather simple way to obtain a variety of outcomes or replies, but it is unlikely to produce a representative sample. Why so? Because in purposive sampling, researchers intentionally decide to select the respondents based on certain few criteria, which might be able to fill up what he requires for his study. Okay, so for example, he requires PhD students to fill in the survey respondent, but he requires only those PhD students who are well acquainted with information technology. So he will decide that I'll go into only those people, those PhD students who are well acquainted with IT technology and get my survey filled in from them only. So this is deciding that who has to be part of the survey. The next one is snowball sampling. In this method, individuals who are selected to participate in a sample are prompted to ask their acquaintances to join, who afterwards have to ask their friends, family, and so forth. Participation spreads like a snowball tumbling down through interconnected people. For an instance, let me give you an example over here. If I know few people who have stayed in an eco-friendly hotel in past, so I would send in my survey questionnaire through mail to these people who I know who have stayed in an eco-friendly hotel in past 1 year. But I want to collect a larger number of samples. So I would request them to forward it to more people in case they know who have stayed in an eco-friendly hotel in last 1 year, so that I can get the relevant responses from these people only. So this is known as snowball sampling technique. Hope this video was quite informative for all of you and look forward to bring another session of quite useful, quite informative content for all of you in future. Thanks for watching. Keep watching for more.